Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of AWS Show and Tell Generative AI Edition. I'm your host, Anil Nadiminti, and today I'm joined by Abhishek from AWS. Nice to meet you all. Nice to meet you, Abhishek.
Hey, Anil, nice to meet you. Thanks for hosting me today.
Yeah,
Really happy to share a lot of details about GenAI and all the things.
thanks, Abhishek. So, yeah, excited for everyone who's joining today. I'm joining from New Jersey, and I'm in Princeton, New Jersey at this moment. I was in Philly this morning, and there's a lot of travel going on, uh, right? So that's the nature of solutions architects at AWS, right?
Oh,
So
that's great. I mean, we could have met. I mean, I'm in Philadelphia, so
we're in
um,
Philadelphia. Okay, so yeah,
yes.
I was going to ask where you are, but yeah, I was in the downtown area, and we were doing some sessions on containers today.
Okay, great.
Um,
I mean, did you get to meet all? Did you get to see all the historical places in Philly? Like there are a lot of buildings which are pretty.
Somewhat, right? Somewhat. I'm in the area, sometimes, but yeah, somewhat. Not all the places, but there is a lot of history to that, and every year we definitely get to go for some time in the summer and spend some time there. But yeah, for everyone who's watching, let us know where you're joining from today, and uh, in the chat you can let us know. And today's session is going to focus on generative AI with Amazon Q. Abhishek, who's our expert, I'll call him as an expert because he's a specialist who does a lot on Amazon Q. Is going to chat with us on agentic workflows with Amazon Q. Like for anyone who's new to Amazon Q, why don't we go into some introductions here before we actually go into all the details? So, for everyone, I'm a senior solutions architect here at AWS, and in my role, I chat with customers and enterprises and let them know and guide them on their technology transformation with AWS. Right. So that's about me, Abhishek.
Sure. I'm Abhishek. I'm one of the senior generative AI solutions architect with AWS, and I've been with AWS for about 2 years now. And I help customers build generative AI applications inside of their company. We try to solve for their use cases, and create business value out of it. Uh, Everyone wants to kind of like do something around generative AI, and also, I mean, the companies particularly, and they're very keen on how keen on integrating generative AI into their workflows, into their processes. So I kind of like brainstorm along with them, try innovating with them, uh, and also try integrating the products that we have in AWS, particularly Amazon Kendra, Amazon Q Business, into their. I'll try to see the product fit for them and integrate things. So that's what I do on a daily basis. It's a lot of learning from past 2 years uh, with the Gen AI coming in.
Yeah, right. So, and what we do in this show for anyone who's new to the generative AI show and tell is obviously the name as it sounds, right? So we try to get a number of demos, and then we talk about the content itself, and we talk about the service and how you can use the service in your life, in your applications, right? So with that said, let's understand, right? So from Abhishek, more about what is Amazon Q? Where does Amazon Q fit in the ecosystem of all the generative AI services that we offer at AWS?
Sure, I can talk about that. So Amazon Q is at the application layer. So for an example, let's say you are a uh, you're in a marketing team, and you
Hmm.
would want to have your own AI assistant, which can talk to your data, which is inside of your, let's say, Confluence or Jira, or maybe like in some website, right? So then you can use Amazon Q as an application, which is like a software as a service sort of layer, to just log in and just start asking questions. So it's at the application layer. Of course, there are other layers as well where you can use LLMs to build things from scratch. Uh, that is available through the Bedrock and the middle layer. And then there's another layer, which is basically the infrastructure layer, where you can have the amazing compute that AWS offers to kind of even train the LLMs, right? So yeah, if
Hmm.
you were to like think about Amazon Q Business, it's at the application layer. I'm not calling it as like top layer, middle layer, and bottom layer, but because there is no concept of that, so I'm just saying it as application layer. Yeah.
So essentially, like Amazon Q is something that you could integrate. It's an application that you can use, right? So is that and you can readily use. um,
That's
uh,
correct.
to help with the generative AI needs. In this case, where does this fit in the list of products? Right, we have um, different kinds of products. Right, Bedrock family of that offers a choice of language models, and SageMaker. Right, so and then Amazon Q itself, and Q Business is today's context. Right, Q Business is also like we have other products like Q Developer. So where
Yeah.
does this Q Business fit into the entire ecosystem?
Sure. Yeah. So Q, the way I think about it and also communicate to customers is that Q is like an umbrella service. Like it is there inside of your, even when you go into the AWS, like the website, right? It's there in the right side where it helps users to understand the AWS documentation, and it is there inside. In another scenario, it is there inside of when you're debugging some Lambda errors. It tries to look into the errors and tries to like solve it. Likewise, there are Q is there in multiple places, particularly Amazon Q Business, right? It is meant for enterprises, and it is used to ingest lots of data, structured on unstructured data from the sources like Confluence, SharePoint, Salesforce, ServiceNow, and all of these places. It can ingest data from all of these sources and can answer on top of it. So that's its main core functionality and capability, and it can do actions as well. Now, given that agentic, we have introduced agentic nature into the Q business, it can do actions like creating a Jira ticket or updating a Jira ticket or creating an incident in ServiceNow or even looking up opportunities in Salesforce and later on creating a case in Salesforce. So it can do all of that. Like it's agentic in nature. You can just say, hey, go plan my sales pipeline or help me figure out what is going on in my sales pipeline, right? Such a thing it can do.
Right, I want to be asking you a lot of those questions to see what's coming up, right? And I would like to also show our viewers some of the demos that we plan to share.
Yeah.
And yes,
Yeah. So again, there were other important products that I had to
right,
mention. So Amazon Q for developers, which helps coders to kind of build the logics that is necessary in the code, help them debug the things. So that is another major component of Amazon Q, which is called as Amazon Q Developer. And then Q in QuickSight. So QuickSight is a dashboard that's offered from AWS, and uh, Q in QuickSight will help in answering questions in a natural way. If you were to ask question, hey, tell me how does the sales look like from the previous year to this year, it would plot a
mhm,
graph to you and then show it. So that is QuickSight, Q in QuickSight. So there are a bunch of flavors. So ultimately, it's an umbrella service. It's basically when the moment you hear the word Q, think of it as generative AI capability enabled on a service.
right. So every particular service like we have, they're definitely adding the Q flavor. I've seen a lot of the
Yeah,
services already adopting the Q flavor. For example, if I go into Lambda and I'm trying to debug an issue, right? So there is a button there that says uh, debug this with Q and diagnose this with Q and identify the problem, right? So, but in today's demo, we are not going to see all of that. In today's demo, is going to focus on Q Business, which is a service that will help as a chatbot interface to do a number of functionalities. And Abhishek will walk us through some of them today, right? So let us know if you are building chatbots and what kind of chatbots you are building, and maybe we could see if you could leverage Q for some of those use cases, right? I mean, generative. When somebody talks about generative AI, first thing that comes to mind is a chatbot, right? So
yeah,
how do I mean, that's how it's been, and maybe now there are voice integrations, voice interfaces that we have where people ask questions, but most of the time generative AI is people are looking at a way to ask questions and get answers. But now Q is also going to take it a step further to be able to do actions like what Abhishek is going to show us, and help us understand how we can integrate this with other applications that you have in an enterprise.
yeah. The first thing that comes to my everyone's mind, right, is a chatbot, but it wouldn't stop there. Of course, in Q, you can just Amazon Q Business, you can ask questions, but you can also trigger actions, which is very important.
Hmm.
I think as a product evolution, right, we kind of come a long way. Now it is kind of like an AI assistant. Given that we have baked in all the agentic features, it can just do more than just uh, chatting with it to get answers, but you can do like, hey, go plan, like I was earlier telling, right? Go plan or optimize my sales pipeline. It would just look into your Confluence pages, goes and looks through your sales. Let's say if you have metrics that you're optimizing on, team's goal on, hey, follow up on certain set of opportunities, right? It will look into that, and then later on it will go into like your Salesforce, and then it would pull up the opportunities. Later on, it would think of how to apply these strategies that you have in your Confluence to each one of these opportunities, and then
Hmm.
eventually says that, hey, you know what, you can do this for your top 5 opportunities. And then later on you can just say, hey, go create a case to follow up and do these actions with the account team or the customer, right? Go give them a call. So yeah, so that's where I think most of the customers are seeing value, and that's how we are kind of enabling the different customers whom we work with.
All right. Okay. So, I'm looking forward to see some of this in action. Do you want to start sharing and chatting with us as you walk us through the experience
Oh,
of using Q?
yeah, absolutely. This being a AWS Show and Tell uh, session, definitely. Let's walk the talk, right?
Yep. Let's get there.
Okay, so I'm
Let's.
gonna.
Yeah.
There it
Here
is.
it is.
Amazing. So this is again the Q business screen. It comes by default. Is the font and all is looking? Is it
Yeah.
looking
This
good?
is looking good. Yep.
Okay, amazing. So like any other chatbot, right? You would get to ask questions, and there are certain knobs that you can click on, right? There is something called as plugins, which is basically doing the actions on third-party systems. There is general knowledge. You can just chat with LLM. You don't have to chat with the company knowledge. So in the company knowledge, I have integrated Confluence and SharePoint documentations. So Q, given that it is built for enterprises, Amazon Q Business, it is it can bring in the documents along with access controls. So if I have access to a particular document, then only I would be able to ask questions on it. So all of that is built into it. Now I always make this statement like, hey, we can definitely build a rack solution over a weekend, but to build something like Amazon Q, a lot of effort has been put in place by thousands of engineers who think about how to bring in data along with security postures. Let's say uh, ACLs are access control list. So each document within the source will have details about who can access it, right? So in an
Right.
enterprise, it's very important that we bring that data, we consider that data as well. So let's say I'm logged in here as Abhishek. Then if I'm asking, only if I were to ask a question, right? Then
Hmm.
only if I have access to that document, Q Business will answer that. So that's how we have designed Q for the enterprises. So that's what is the company knowledge.
So that's what is a differentiator, right? For example, if I build a RAG and the RAG can talk to a knowledge base to the data sources. So what it means is the RAG can, anybody who's asking a general RAG solution, they'll have to, the RAG will actually be able to go fetch the responses from the data sources and relay them back to the user. Now, when we go to Q, and the company knowledge base, it looks like we are also able to integrate the security side of things, right? So privilege, whoever is having access to a particular data source, only they will be able to look at those details, and then they'll be able to ask questions, and then they'll get the response from the particular data
Data
sources, right?
sources, right? Yeah, that's correct. I lost you for a moment. That's why I kind of like removed my headphone. Is this all better? Yeah.
I think I could hear my echo there for a little bit, but yeah, I think we're good.
Okay. I can try putting it back. Give me a moment.
Yeah, sure. So while Abhishek is adjusting, right? So again, for anyone who did not catch it yet, so we have Amazon Q, which is going to look at all the safeguards that are in place, the ACLs, the controls that are in place. For example, if you have SharePoint in your enterprise, and there are two different types of users: users who have access to certain documents and users who don't have access to documents. When you use Q and ask questions, you these two different set of users will have two different set of answers, right? So only if you're allowed to see the and view the documents, then you'll be able to also get the responses from those documents.
That is correct. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, great. So all right, so let's continue, Abhishek.
Okay, great. So, so what you can do is you can ask questions like, I'm going to let's assume that I'm a marketing, I'm one of the team member in marketing team. and I have not. I was on a vacation, right? So I can ask something like, "What was okay? What was discussed in?" I can just ask this question,
Hmm.
and this is very typical RAG, like Q&A, right? Um, let me log in. I've been experimenting with this Q business for quite some time. I think multiple of our colleagues are also kind of experimenting. So let's see
Hmm.
what.
All right, so
Let me just log out and log in
log out.
using my account.
Yeah,
I'm going to
that's what
use.
happens. I think when we are chatting about let's maybe plot the screen. So when we were chatting, and then I think the session probably expired there. So let's
Yeah.
get that. So meanwhile, let us know in the chat, folks, what kind of chat solutions or RAG solutions that you're building, and if you're integrating with your backends, right? So if you're integrating and pulling data sources, you're doing any actions. Nowadays, MCPs are hot, and everyone is actually building with MCPs, right? So being able to do actions and do various invocations there. So let us know if you are building any of those. I see we have some question in the chat about the rate limit. It's not about rate limits. I think it's like so, he's logged off, and maybe that's kind of why it was showing that message. But let's go back into the chat. Right.
Oh, okay. I'm sure I'm doing it in incognito now. So
All right. Okay.
one moment. Yeah, I mean we can continue chatting on the
All
other
right. So
MCP thing here.
all right. So yeah. So when we talk about agentic workloads, right? So agentic workloads are typically doing certain actions. You orchestrate a language model to do a certain number of actions, and then you can integrate and do perform these actions, right? For example, creating an entry in Salesforce, being able to run some queries and responding back to users, right? So those are some of these examples that you could do with agentic workloads. And we have a session coming up on agents in the upcoming weeks, and we'll chat more on agentic workloads with Amazon Bedrock. Um, and we also have a question in the chat, Abhishek, and I'm not sure if I have the answer for this. I'll pop it up over here. Is Q is this enterprise can this be integrated with enterprise data, and can it be integrated with SAP on
Well,
AWS Rise?
so for SAP, right? You can there are connectors and plugins. There are two things in Amazon Q Business. So if you were to for integrate with SAP, you have to build like a custom connector. We have mechanisms to kind of allow make that happen. And if you are planning to use it as a plugin to do actions in these SAP systems, in fact, one of my colleague and I built SAP Success Factor, a plugin for SAP Success Factor, and we're able to do certain get some of the HR information from there. So yeah, it is possible. I've seen it working, and yeah. So SAP has this data lay, I think data APIs or something,
Mhm.
and they have to integrate that into that. I'm forgetting the name, but yeah, there is definitely that thing.
Right. So while Abhi is trying to pull his screen up, what I can say is that there are some readily available plugins that you have from Amazon Q. And if you want to extend the functionality, you can also build your own custom plugins to be able to get that additional functionality if it's not there already. And our product teams are constantly looking out for these um, different details that the customers are looking forward to implement. And the more we hear from you folks, like everyone who's listening in, please let us know if you want to have any new feature, and we could, our product teams are constantly listening in and trying to add
Yeah,
those features in there. All right. So
yeah. Let's get back to our screen,
yes.
right?
All
Okay,
right.
great.
Okay. Yeah.
So I logged in incognito to avoid any issues. So when I asked this question, right, typical rag, what was discussed in marketing meeting? So we have it did. So what Q does is it looks through all the content that is there ingested, and then it brings back the relevant pieces of information. So I was asking about marketing meeting, so it brought back details from the meeting minutes and the things that are captured inside the um, Confluence. So I have it logged in other screen. Let me stop sharing my screen and then start sharing. I'll share the window, Anil, if
Yeah,
you don't mind.
yeah, go ahead, please.
Yeah,
And essentially, when we ask questions with any chatbot, you want to be able to look at the sources and the data where it's coming from, so that you know that the um, bots are not hallucinating, right? So you want to trust the sources and be able to rely on them. So that's kind of where the details from the sources are coming up. So we are seeing your
yeah.
screens here, Abhishek.
Okay, so let's just copy. I'm in incognito, so I'm just going to ask copy paste. So this is the link that you would that is pointing to. So yeah, it brought back the links for the marketing meeting minutes, right? So when we ask question in Q Business, it brings back the details from your enterprise data sources and also provides a citation, which is very important uh, for for users. Like here, you can see that 2 points to this. The answer, this line comes from this particular document.
Hmm.
Likewise, all the others one come from the different set of documents. So it provides all these sources. So that's very important feature.
All right.
Now, so yeah, I mean, any questions like about this particular feature where we kind of
Uh,
pull the data from like
yeah,
hundreds and
right.
thousands of data sources?
So now when we integrate this, right? So there is also like you need to be able to. So you shared something from Confluence, but you had to probably ingest the data and you make it available for Amazon Q. So
Correct.
what is the process of doing that, Abhishek? Like, is that what is involved in that process?
So okay, I can show the backend of how it was built. That way I can explain through this. So let me show it. Right. So this was our Amazon Q business. Let me bring my backend of how it was built.
Right.
So here it is. So I'm going to show literally the backend of this particular application. Anil, feel
Okay.
free to kind of, yeah,
All right. So this is the Amazon Q Business Console that they're trying to show us.
that is correct. Yeah. And here, if you were to look at it, right, you can see that there are data sources
Hmm.
and the Confluence data source is there. So all that you have to do is add data source, and you just have to say like add Confluence,
Hmm.
and then you can feed in the details of the Confluence URL, ACLs, and all of the details, the secrets, IAM role. And then you can say like which do you want pages, do you want blocks, like which ones you want, and then you can give details about, let's say the spaces. You want in just marketing page, you want in just the sales page. So that thing you can say, and you can say like, okay, do it as a full sync mode for the first time. Later on, you can say like, ingest it, ingest everything, right? Or sorry, ingest only the new and modified.
Hmm.
So that option is there. If at all you have visual content, audio content, video content, you can do a check mark on this. Let's say you have training documents that are attached in the conference page for an HR in an HR conference page, right? They may have a training documents attached. You can ingest them too.
No, no,
So,
Abhishek, actually, can you zoom that in a little bit? Just
oh
want to,
yeah,
yeah, and also like, yeah, let's look at this, right? So, if we enable the checkbox, you're saying that Amazon Q will go in and it's going to look at the visual content within the documents, including audio files and video files that
yes.
are within the data sources, and it'll make them available for a Q&A via the chatbot.
That is correct. Yeah. So, and that is just a check mark in Q Business and in our connectors. So, if you have like an image instead of your PDF, which has a graph, you'd be able to like ask questions on top of it. And if you are ingesting like audio files, MP3 files, podcast. Probably right, this video itself, if you were to put that into Q Business, we would be able to ask questions on top of that. So all that we had to do is do a check mark on it, because it would trigger some multimodal processing.
Hmm.
That's why we have kind of like made this as an optional one rather than providing it as a default one, because um, there's some more extra processes that would run to make sure that we identify the different files and we kind of ingest that. Not every time people want to ingest audio and video files,
Hmm.
it may be there in the confidence page, but not necessarily that they want to ingest it.
Not for all
uh,
data sources, right? So again, like
Correct.
every data
Yeah.
source may have some text documents, or some may have like these multimodal images,
Correct.
and then once you do all of that, it looks like you can also um, encrypt the data as it lands into AWS, and it's encrypted, and then you're able to add the data source. Now, going into the
Yes.
previous screen, you showed uh, that Q has these data sources, and there are a number of data sources there, right? Can you talk about these, all of these? I mean, I know there are a lot of them to
Yeah.
talk, but can you chat about the most popular ones that are out there?
Oh yes, the popular ones are Confluence, ServiceNow, Salesforce, SharePoint, and Jira is another popular one.
Hmm.
Uh, so these are like the top 5 popular ones, and then there are a bunch of others as well. Now we have seen use cases where customers have kind of used like at least 5 of them. We are also seeing like customers relying on just one of them because all of the data is present in that environment. Let's say Google Drive. Like we have customers who might want to like just leverage Google Drive because they have like thousands and thousands of files just sitting there. Now for Q Business, right? Q Business is across the connectors. So what the
Hmm.
you can ask questions across the connectors. So it's just not one thing. So that's one of the value add of Q Business, where if you were to ask like, hey, show me the marketing meeting minutes, or show me details about certain XYZ thing, then it would search across the data sources to get you that information, which is very powerful.
Right, and also like, yeah, see on the top web crawler, right? So let's talk about web crawler for a second, because that seemed to be my favorite uh,
Yes.
connector, where we could integrate Q with the functionality of web crawling, and let's chat about this in some detail here, if that's okay, to expand on this.
Oh yeah, sure. This particular connector is pretty popular as well. Now, among those companies who want to ingest like product documentation page, or let's say Amazon itself, right, has like a product documentation page. If you were to just give the Amazon Q Business URL and bunch of other pages that you want to crawl, this web crawler would crawl all of that, and then you'd be able to ask questions on it. The reason why I picked up the product documentation is that that's a use case that many of our customers use it. So they want to ingest the developer documentation, the API documentation, and just want to ask questions. And in
Hmm.
fact, in some of the use cases, customers who are like, "Hey, go generate JavaScript code for this particular integration," and they would have ingested the API documentation of their product, and
Right.
they would ask various things, and they in fact provide this Q Business link, the chat link, to their developers or
Mm.
their partners who are building on top of their um, product.
API platforms, right?
Correct.
Product platforms.
Yes. So
So I can imagine that, if I have like a product, and I have like the user guide for the product, and if I have my own APIs, I can ingest them and then make them available as a chat interface, so that my users could uh, ask questions how to implement and integrate. And
yep.
I see this as a value add, and being able to crawl the portals and to gather the information, I think it's huge.
Yes, absolutely. So, okay. So this again, these are all the connectors that we had, right? So many
Hmm.
connectors are there. And I was earlier, somebody was asking like, hey, do you have SAP connector? Right? We do not, but you can build this custom data source using
Hmm.
which you can build your own. You can build integration to any of your source systems. Let's say there is a system called as KMS Lite. You can build a connectivity to that. You can build it to HubSpot. You can build it to SAP system. Like uh, you can build it to any of the systems. Of course, you have to be an expert to build it to some degree, Q Business is more for business users. Now,
Hmm.
when you're building custom connectors, you may need developer help to figure out what APIs to call to pull the data and all. Q Business would handle pulling that data into your system, but of course, the logic has to be built by somebody. That there is a developer dependency on that. We have taken care of that for many of the popular sources, and we are going to keep on adding newer data sources as well. Just that it will take some. We'll expand on our data sources too.
Excellent, right? So we have these
Okay,
data
great.
sources. Now we're connecting to the data sources and ingesting the data. Now what next, right?
Yeah.
So what next after that?
What more? What more it can do, right? Yeah, of course. One thing that I showed was that you can ask questions and you would get the answers from it. That's great. Now I would want to show like what can you do with uh, plugins. So we have this other feature called as plugins, which using which you can do actions in third-party systems. Here again, this is one of the legacy applications. Sort of like one of the old app that I'm showing, where I have a bunch of plugins to Jira and Salesforce, and also to one of the proprietary, sorry, not proprietary, one of the custom applications called as employee time off or leave management system. So through this, you can do actions. What do I mean? What do I mean by actions, right? Actions are something which you can do in real time,
Hmm.
and for example, oh, go get me the stock value of Amazon is a action which has to happen in real time. It will get the data in real time through APIs. Or apply leave, how many leaves do I have, right? These sort of questions, it has to go and get it from in a real-time manner. So those are the actions that I'm talking. But in case of data sources that we have, it is more of like asking questions on what do you call documents that are ingested already,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
That is
Right.
what happens with the data source. So plugins are more for doing actions. So that's the difference. Again, each one has its own what do you call value.
Right.
If you have thousands and thousands of documents, you want to pre-ingest and keep it, and so
Hmm.
that you can just get the answer in like 5 seconds. Even in actions, right? Actions are more for like doing something, update, create. So those sort of operation, delete operations.
Right. So now in when you look at those plugins, right? So what are some of those plugins that are available here?
Okay, let's
As
let's
you
go into that. Yes.
right.
So let's click on add plugin. It is so another thing that I want to showcase is how easy is it to add these plugins. So it's as easy as clicking a button and then configuring the ServiceNow plugin. Now here, when here I just clicked on ServiceNow, right? What it can do is create incident, get change request, get incidences, update incidents. So these actions are by default supported. Now these are called as built-in plugins,
Hmm.
and we have a couple of them, and we plan to add more and more of them. Now, if at all you want to build your own custom plugin, right? Yeah, there are thousands and thousands of SaaS platforms out there and applications out there that you may want to integrate. So you can build your own custom plugin too, and you can define like, define something called as open API specification.
Hmm.
Basically, it says like, oh, this many APIs are there, similar to ServiceNow, creating incident, updating incident, right? You can have your own definition scheme API definitions, which you can use, which can provide here. Later on, what happens is that LLM would interpret this, and uh, it would try triggering those actions. I don't have anything
Right.
here. Yeah, let me pull up the demo that I had was trying to show. There we have a bunch of them, and I can just show it. So again, I think the larger question was like, hey, what are plugins, right? How many do we have? We have a bunch of them, and the configuration is quite easy. You just have to provide the URL of the service now. I'm just showing the example, and I have to provide the OAuth to credentials for it. So that is as simple as that, and just
Hmm.
add it.
Right. And then once you do that, the plugin is going to be able to do the actions
That's
uh,
correct. Yeah, it would
when
be able to do the
an
actions.
integration action with a particular plugin, right? So we
That's
have a
correct.
question in the chat, Abhishek. This is coming from a LinkedIn user. It says, right, so can you bring a SQL data and how does it read data using prompts?
Can you bring in SQL data? So yeah, you can build integration into SQL. In fact, in my demo, I have an example of it, where you can build a custom plugin which can hit your database APIs, and Q would do the translation of natural language to SQL, and it would be able to pull the information. In fact, to show it, right, I'm going to ask certain questions. Uh, and I'm going to show it. And this show is like show and tell, so I'm going
Yeah.
to directly show it. So so I have in the backend, I have a database which has product details, returns information. It has details about sales, a lot of sales details as well. So let me ask you itself, like, what are all the tables do you have?
Yep. So now we have Q going to the data sources, and it knows that this particular, it's able to understand that we're asking a question that
Yeah,
is related to databases.
that's correct. So to explain, right? So I had a bunch of plugins to
Mhm.
Salesforce, Jira, ServiceNow, and databases to trigger agents on Bedrock and time off and a bunch of them. So Q figured out that the moment I asked what are the tables, because I was having difficulty remembering, right? So this naturally happened, and then we can just submit it. I'll have to see whether that's a right way of calling, but so Q converted natural language to SQL, and it's trying to hit the tables.
Right. So it depends on the particular
Can you try again?
database
Yeah,
database, and then what are, maybe even if you want to ask question on a particular data, Q will generate those natural language to SQL prompts and being able to relay them.
that's correct. So let me try again. And if not, I remember certain tables, which I'll ask what
And we
products were.
mhm.
It's okay. Uh, so this is a custom plugin I have written. So I have to improvise the prompts and do a bunch of other things to make it work on all the table queries. So let me go ahead and then ask certain questions. What products were, because it has returns, returned items, the reason for returning, product IDs, who was the supplier of it.
So this is a custom plugin that Abhishek created,
Yeah,
but there are some ready-made integrations with data sources, right? So like RDS that you can integrate, and using that integration, you're able to query and ask questions on your databases from your databases, right? So I think that's the answer there. While Abhishek is trying to pull in, and
yes.
we have, while we are looking at an answer for that question, Abhishek, we have another question in the chat. And the question here is join late. Are we assuming that the person using the agent has authorization to view the database schema as output by the agent?
Uh, this is the custom plugin that I have built. Now, during the way I built it is I have not put much of authorization into the databases. Now, if when you're hitting the API, you can control as to who is hitting, right? You can take the user ID and pass that to the database. That way, only if that person has access to it, then they would be able to get it. This is a custom plugin that I've built for experimentation purpose. I have seen implementations where, it would when you hit the API, there is another table setting which says like who has access to which table, and then we would do a join of this access table plus the content of the table, and then we return the values. It would return null if that person doesn't have access to it, and it would return like values if that person has access to it. So again, this is a custom plugin that I have built to
Mhm.
show the art of possible, right? Of course, it doesn't have all the bells and whistles, but it does the basic things. But yeah, this can be expanded to like a lot of other scenarios as well. Now, this in this scenario, we are trying to showcase like, let's say an analyst from supply chain team or product team, right? They're trying to figure out like what were the reasons for people returning the product, what were the products, who is the supplier who kind of like, who kind of had the defective products, right?
Mhm.
So that's a use case. So let's go and ask some more questions, right? Uh, like what were the who are the suppliers of the product
Mhm.
who sent defect, I mean, whose products are defective, something like that.
So we're looking at Amazon Q for anyone who's joining late, right? We're looking at Amazon Q being able to talk to different data sources, and we have like about 40 plus connectors where Amazon Q can integrate, and it can respond back to queries using large language models and generative AI, right? So that's kind of what Abhishek is showing us right now.
Yes. Yeah. So here you can see that this again, this is the custom plugin product sales return database. So it created the SQL on the fly. I'll show the backend schema as well as to how what and all I provided for LLM to figure that out. But as you can see, Q has the capability to understand your natural language, create SQL query by looking at your table schema, and then we have ability to hit the database as well. Of course, this can be made as advanced as possible to put all the bells and whistles as well. And you can provide like few short examples as well. Many times, like probably like what 30, 50% or maybe 30% of the queries may be repetitive in an analyst domain, right? So those all can be provided as a few short examples in the Open API specification.
Hmm.
So that is possible too. So, okay, great. Based on our database query, we identified that two suppliers associated with the Defibri product, supplier one and two. Now I can say something like, okay, give me the contact address for them, right? It is conversation in nature. You can just say, um, when you say them, like it understands that, okay, I'm referring to the two suppliers that both. Um,
So traditionally, if we were to use our traditional approaches, we would have to build queries. We would have to build an application around this and integrations with the database. Right now, everything is happening like the natural language to SQL is happening on the fly, and we're asking questions and we're getting the responses right here.
that is correct. And also Q is very much it leads. Like as you see here, both suppliers are located in USA. Is there anything specific you would like to do with this information, such as drafting a communication to the suppliers about the defective product, right? I can just say, go ahead. So this is agentic in nature, where it leads the conversation rather than waiting for, again, not necessarily waiting for you, but it kind of like nudges you to
Hmm.
think beyond it. I was not thinking of okay drafting email, but let's see how does it draft it, right? I just said go ahead uh, based on what it said. Okay, great. Before we proceed, formal process of notice. Okay, so budget and bunch of other things there. But anyways, uh, it would have to figure. It did suggest some of the things. Now there are some more
Right.
things.
So
Draft has to be that. This or not. Okay.
so now looking at these other, like, can you show another plugin, Abhishek, like maybe integration with Salesforce pipeline? Can we see how we can retrieve maybe the top opportunities from Salesforce, and maybe plan my sales pipeline, right? How can I do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So now that I'm logged into incognito, I may have to re-log in. Anil, you may have to like,
Yeah, yeah,
at one, I'll let you know. Like, sorry, not now. Sorry, let me.
right.
Yeah, I mean, feel
So
free to share it. I'll let you know.
yeah, yeah, sure. Okay.
So I
So
can. So let's ask something like,
mhm.
uh, help me optimize. So okay, the
Can you
context
give a
is that.
background about this, right? Yeah.
Sure. So we have a bunch of these plugins, right?
Mhm.
As we told, like there's Salesforce, there's Jira, there's ServiceNow. You can use any of them. Of course, by asking questions, you would trigger it. Q would figure out, like, okay, based on what you're asking, what it has to do. So in Salesforce, you can get cases, you can update case, you can get an opportunity, create an opportunity. In Jira, you can read the task and a bunch of others. So that integration we have done, and also we shown earlier like how easy is it to build these integrations out. Now um, let's say you are one of the sales folks,
Mhm.
and you're trying to understand how to optimize, how you would want to optimize your sales pipeline, right? Help me, I can just say like, help me optimize my sales pipeline. So I can just ask that question.
So now it knows when you ask the question, Q is able to understand that it should talk to Salesforce because there's Salesforce data
Yeah.
in there.
So what it is doing is, Yeah, it is trying to like go get the data from Salesforce, as I was earlier talking, right?
Hmm.
This is a very important thing that we are doing here. I want to explain it here. So Q agents, right? Agents lately or at the moment, we do not have IDs for the agents. We do not have agents as colleagues.
Hmm.
So agents are still leveraging our credentials, which is here in this case mine, to kind of log into these systems, other systems, and through OAuth 2 authentication mechanism to kind of get the information. So this is OAuth 2 basically. I am authorizing Amazon Q Business to talk to my Salesforce content. So that's what I'm.
Based on your credentials, it's going to ask Salesforce, and that's how it sets the access controls for the actions that you're performing right
That
now.
is correct. Yes. So I'm going to authorize. So okay. So you can like now hide the screen. I'll just log in. I'm doing it incognito earlier. You kind of like logged into all the screens, but that's okay. Now we are
Sure, yeah.
just do it.
So essentially, Amazon Q knows that it should go to Salesforce and perform an action, and it should use the OAuth credentials of Abhishek as he logs in to be able to perform a specific action. Now, Abhishek, is this across all the plugins where you have to integrate with your credentials, or is it some plugins which need additional authorization? uh, I know you spoke about data sources having ACLs and plugins being able to do some of this, right? So can you speak about that, where the
Correct.
authorization is not limited to data sources or the plugins themselves?
Yeah. So for connectors, right, there are different. So connectors will have to, you run on their own timely basis. Let's say
Hmm.
you have scheduled it to run on a weekend or a night. So they will have their own credentials and stuff to kind of pull the data. So that's separate from actions uh, that we are doing. Like here, we are
Hmm.
trying to pull the information in real time. Also in Q Business, we use OAuth 2 mechanism, which is basically the thing that I explained. You would delegate your access to Q Business to do the action
Hmm.
on behalf of you. So that mechanism. So we have two different ways of logging, I mean, pulling the information or using the credentials. Of course, it's not necessarily like your credential, like it's not like user ID password, but rather it's
Hmm.
like there is OAuth in OAuth 2 where there's client ID, client secret, and there are SSOs that come into picture,
Hmm.
um, uh, single sign-on. So all of that can be leveraged. Yes.
All right.
Basically, yeah. Oops, sorry. Can you please?
Yeah, yeah, sure.
Sorry. I'm
So
trying to
Abhishek is
log.
logging into a demo account there to try and get us
Yeah, I'm
a
trying to log
preview.
into all
So,
my demo accounts so that I can like quickly show all the demos, right? But yeah, any other question you had? Like, let me just.
right. So, and then in sense of, let's talk about maybe like Abhishek, while you're where you're logging into your Salesforce, maybe chatting about S3, right? So S3 is a very popular data source, and we have a lot of documents that we can put in S3 and being able to retrieve and make queries, right? So when we talk about S3 as a data source, being able to integrate Amazon Q, right? So um, is the integration very similar to S3 as a data source? And what is involved in that, right? Is it like how you showed us, like the SharePoint integration or the web crawler? Is it very similar, or does it is
S3,
it
yeah,
different?
S3 is pretty simple. Again, you may it has to, yeah, you may not need much. There's no credentials involved in S3, right? As for SharePoint and others, there's credentials involved. Credentials doesn't necessarily mean username, passwords. It can be
Hmm.
OAuth to a bunch of other ways of doing it.
Right.
Um, right. So uh, yeah, it's S3 is pretty easy. Now, I made sure that I log into multiple of the application that I wanted to showcase today. Of course, we were talking earlier. We were talking about optimizing the sales pipeline, right?
Hmm.
Um, so help me optimize. Okay, great. So the moment I logged in, it kind of, let me ask this question once again, so that you would get to see it in real time as to what it's doing. Help me optimize my sales pipeline. So there is some content about sales in my Confluence page as well. It has connection to Salesforce as well. And this is my demo. This is what I use for experimentation.
Hmm.
Um, where I have a bunch of opportunities. Um, these are all samples and bunch of things. Let's see what Q does, right? Right. So to help optimize your sales pipeline, I have analyzed your current opportunity and can provide some insight based on data and best practices. Here's what I found. Your current sale, your current pipeline stages and number of opportunities. So prospectus to qualified one, needs analysis one. So it kind of analyzed all the opportunities that I have to kind of understand like where is my current sales pipeline, right? And these are all the opportunities that I have access to. So Q kind of looked into that and it said that. And based on this information and industry best practices, here are some recommendations. So Q is kind of like now saying, hey, focus on the early opportunities. So it is saying that. And that is coming in from the sales phase that we had. In fact, as a team, right? If I'm a part of, let's assume I'm a part of the sales team. So
Hmm.
we had defined some of the strategies in our sales. We have put together as a team. We were met together. Let's assume that we met, and then we have come up with a strategy, and we are saying like, hey, we have to achieve 80% customer retention, and we have said like, hey, increase new customer acquisition by 15%, right? We have all of these strategies that we have defined. Now, Q, what it did is it looked into my real opportunities. It looked into the strategies that we have defined, which is textual components, and it is suggesting that I have to do so and so. You have two opportunities in prospectus stage: implement target marketing campaign and sales outreach to increase new customer acquisition by 15%. So it is suggesting based on all of for each one of them. So that's how it kind of combines both RAG, which is to pull the information from textual content, and the real-time information that comes from the Salesforce or ServiceNows of the world. Now I can ask something like, I asked a very generic question, right? At then let's see what Q is suggesting. Would you like me to help focus on any specific area of your sales pipeline optimization? So I would say that, hey, concentrate. Let's see if there are any questions so that it's a very
Yeah, if anyone in the chat wants to ask any questions here, and to see what comes up in the sales pipeline, put it in the chat, and Abhishek can ask that question. Right. Again, these are some samples that we are trying to demo today to show you what are all the features that are available from Amazon Q that will help you build your generative AI um, bots and applications, right? That can be utilized for your workloads. So
yeah.
we have some questions in the chat. Abhishek, like maybe let me pull one of them here in any random order. So this is one of the questions, right? So from Leah, it's saying, is it pulling those recommendations from historical performance based on past campaigns?
Okay, that. Oh, okay. So to clear the confusion, right? So this, so as a, so here I have to show this SAM Confluence page. So this Confluence page is put together by sales team, like as a demo, and we have defined like sales goals and recent wins. Like these are all sample and like like demo for demo purposes. We have kind of
Hmm.
defined that. We have campaign information and bunch of these examples that we have. Now Q, what it does is it looks into these ones, the historic ones, and it is kind of like trying to make sense of how to deal with the new opportunities that are there in my Salesforce. In a way, to answer your question, yes. But if you're asking like, hey, is it doing forecasting or any mathematical thing? No. But I think you may be asking the first one. So
Right.
yeah.
Right. And then also like from the login that you did earlier, when you try to authorize, right? So another question came up in chat, like how long will the agent retain the access token?
It is for about 24 hours. That's what we have configured. It is a security best practice for to have it as for 24 hours. And that is because like employees may quit the next day. Usually the reset would happen every 1 day, right? So the agent is configured to. In fact, this.
And most importantly, as we try to get Q business to be set up initially, right? So Q business can be integrated with AWS Identity Center, where you can further integrate with your Active Directory, your and other identity providers where you have the user credentials, right? So essentially, you don't need to maintain any credentials here. All you need to do is just let the identity providers do the authorization authentication authorization, and then let Q handle the rest of the chat interface, right? So that's kind of how the access
Yes.
control mechanism works. And Amazon Q can also, I think, in this example, Abhishek is showing how you can optimize the sales pipeline and bring in some data. So yeah, I think we are kind of getting close to the end of the hour here, but just let's probably look at the
Yeah.
last couple of screens here, Abhishek. Yeah.
Sure. So yeah, so what I said was earlier question was like, hey, concentrate top five opportunities and help me strategize, right? Strategize. So it pulled in the top five opportunities. Of course, they're in the closed.
Hmm.
So it kind of like coming up with strategy as to how to progress this further, or reopen this. Right? I should have said it like, hey, help me open opportunities. But anyways, we'll go with this one. It came up with individual suggestions for each one of them. So what I can do is I can say like, hey, go create a case for each one of these opportunities, right? And I can, when the moment I say it, the agent will pick that uh,
Hmm.
question, and then it comes up with a plan. So one more thing that I did not explain is agent is enabled behind the scene. It is doing all of planning, reasoning, and everything in the backend. I mean, when I say backend, the background of the queue, and
Hmm.
it remembers all the things that we have said so far. Now, the moment I said create case for each one of these opportunities, knows that I'm talking about the top five opportunities, and it's going to create the case for that. So here is where it does it in real time. Um,
Right, and then you're able
so
to integrate
we can go
with
in.
Salesforce and look at the sales opportunities, right? The particular case that was created. Now, what we did not
Correct.
show today is also like maybe some integrations with Jira. We were not able to show, but here is the case that got created. Looks like maybe
Yeah.
is that the one?
Yeah, I can show. Oh, yeah, it's kind of getting created. I think 25th for the
Right, right.
25th. So this,
Yeah.
uh,
So
this is the bottom one.
sure,
So it
right.
created
So,
the case.
mhm. So now in
I need to
terms of
do that like probably 5 times.
yeah, yeah. And Abhishek, right? So maybe let's chat about let's maybe talk about the guardrails, right? Because now we have a chat interface, and um, what kind of guardrail mechanisms do we have in terms of making the chatbot interface more on the responsible AI end, right? So to be able to safeguard the communications in and out, right? So can we integrate those guardrails, and maybe like just maybe speak about that as we try to um,
Sure.
get to the end of the
So
session here.
yeah, so guardrails come baked into the Amazon Q product. So if you were to say like, hey, burn down the library, or like if you're having any suicidal or like something destructive kind of questions, if you were to ask it, Q would automatically block it,
Hmm.
and so that is there by default. Now, in companies, you may not want to let users use, let's say, a HR bot to create coding, right? So you can say like, you can create topics inside Q Business or mechanisms in Q Business and say that, hey, Q should not give code. Q should not talk about stock investment, should not give financial advice, should not give something. So if the moment you say that, it won't do it. So
Right.
that feature is there.
Right. Excellent. Right. So yeah, there's a lot that we spoke today in the context of Amazon Q, and of course, Abhishek had a couple of other demos also lined up as well. But we are at the end of the hour, and looks like it's wrap up time. So any takeaways as we just wrap up, Abhi, like for anyone who's trying to experiment with Amazon Q?
Sure. I think this year is all about the agents, right? So I think we would be able to deliver, if you were to integrate Q Business, we would be able to deliver the value a lot
Hmm.
more, given that we are able to integrate into multiple data sources and multiple plugins. As you saw, like in the Salesforce example itself, I just asked the question. I'm not a sales guy. I don't know much about all the different things that salespeople would do. So, but just by asking, hey, help me strategize, it kind of gave me the details. So that is how powerful it is. And I mean, yeah, a lot of companies are trying to explore in this area, and here is how Q Business can help, and that too with just few clicks. You just have to
Right.
click to connect to the data source. You just have to click, do a bunch of clicks, and you can enable hundreds and thousands of your employees to with the AI assistant, which can work on your data in your environment.
Excellent. Yeah, thanks Abhishek for this, and for all the viewers, definitely log in to the Amazon AWS console and look at more on Amazon Q. With that said, see you again another episode in the future episode, and with that, Abhishek and me are logging off today. We'll see you next time next week at the same time. Right?
Okay, thank you so much. It was nice presenting here, and really appreciate Anil
Yeah.
for bringing me in.
Thanks.
And
Yeah.
yeah,
Thanks to
thank you
all
so
the
much.
viewers. Right. So thanks
Thank you.
everyone for watching. Yep.